releasing this book by Zahiruddin sir, and the aim of this book, according to me, is building the memory of the resistance, institutionalizing the memory of the resistance movement of Jammu and Kashmir. I would request Zahir sir first to himself talk about the book, why he wrote this book, and what was his target, what does he want to achieve through this book.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The work on the book started some 7 years ago when my esteemed President Mr. Pervez Imroz felt the need of having a people's version of the Kashmir history, which all of us present here believe has been doctored and distorted. So I started work immediately, and all of the stories in the book, they have been published in various local dailies, Greater Kashmir, Rising Kashmir, Kashmir Reader, and some Urdu local dailies as well. I have received the feedback and done the corrections where necessary, and when I collected the material, again, my colleagues in the Jammu Kashmir Police Society urged me to publish a big book on unsung heroes of Kashmir. This book is about events in the story form, mainly for students, to give them a feel of Kashmir history. I have gone to the witnesses. Fortunately, I could find some persons who have taken part in the freedom struggle right from 31. I was also fortunate to lay my hands on 5 unpublished biographies of political workers and some diaries. And in addition, I conducted interviews of 100 political workers who worked in 31, 47 and onwards. I am basically working on a book, Kashmir History, and this book, which is released in a couple of minutes, will go as footnotes in the main book. The idea is to have the background or the specimens of various events. For example, we have an organization, Islamic Students League. In the main book, it will be covered in 1 para or 2. But how it was formed, who are the people responsible for it, you will find the story in this book, so that the people come to know. And it is more about memory and forgetfulness. So I give you a choice between memory and forgetfulness. As long as memory is with me, I believe that it is the only tool with me and with the people of Kashmir to fight, to strive for our just goal. For example, as long as the memory of Kunanpur Spora is with me, I will continue to strive for justice, and similarly for other movements as well. Memory is important, and this book, it is about memory and forgetfulness. And this book is also to evoke a discussion on various issues that have been mentioned in the book, to involve the younger generation, the students in the discussion, and I will be happy to answer questions, if any, and you'll form an opinion on it after you read it, so I leave it to you. Please feel free to ask questions. Please feel free to criticize wherever you feel there is a ground for criticism. And I hand over the house back to Mr. Khurram.
Thank you, Zahir sir. Before we proceed with the program, I would request some of our young friends here to come over the dais and release the book, and Zahir sir would hand over the book to them, I would call them on the stage. Uzaifa Basu, Sabreen Mushtaq, Rehana Rashid, Imran Majid, Salman Bhatt, Ala Fazli, Junaid Ahmed, Faraz Yasin. Because the idea is, please proceed towards. The idea is that Zahir sir wants to dedicate this book to the young people and give them the baton of the movement for future. And that's why I would request Zahir sir to hand over the book and release the book there. Thank you very much. I'm sure some of you are wondering why we have arranged this as a round table. The idea is, as Zahir Sahib said, that through this book, Zahir Sahib intended to evolve a discussion over this period of the history which Zahir Sahib has documented. So we would give everyone the chance to talk about their opinion on this period of history. But before that, we have asked some of the young men and girls to write the reviews on Zahir Sahib's book. So there are 4 people who have prepared reviews. We would request Uzaifa Basu to first present her review.
Struggle of Kashmiris, starting back from 1847, the Kashmir shawl weavers education to the recent events like the Shopian case of the Guru's execution. Even though the details are limited, but the book has some interesting information for readers, like the naming of Islamic College for women. There was a move to name it after Jawaharlal Nehru, but this was strongly opposed, resisted by the women students. This is a story that is not widely known but very important to understand. Not just the major initiatives in our history but even smaller ones that require to be remembered. As a young Kashmiri woman, this story is also important for me. The women of Kashmir have a very important role to play in resistance. Stories like this are therefore important for me to understand the past resistance of women. A good portion of this book has been dedicated to the recent events of Kashmir in the last decade that most of the people are aware about, and which one occurs in the public discourse again and again, like Chatti Singh Bora case, of the Guru's execution, or for that matter, uprising of 2010. The book refers to the various human rights violations that took place in recent past and also decades back. For the young readers, this book gives basic insights about the political armed resistance and some similar events which had started on various occasions prior to 1989. The book outlines some major historical events like genocide of thousands of Jammu Muslims in September-November 1947. It is in this context the book provides basic clues for a more detailed research on similar subjects. The book has also touched some of the important issues which had remained much talked about, like the Indira Abdullah Accord, split of national conference and Muslim conference, and similar other events. The book also has a tinge of humor in a story that is attributed to Maharaja's lavish expenditure. The author's approach to narration has been honest from the perspective of its ideology and political beliefs. Reader will have no difficulty in understanding that authors stand on Kashmir conflict, and this raises an important question for me. When one writes about Kashmir, should one keep one's political positions out of the writing? I believe there is no way out to do that. While my political opinions must never stop me from being critical and speaking the truth, I believe my work must be influenced by my politics, and I should be honest and open about it, as Sahib has been in his book. The author has also shared about some personal experiences and feelings, like his role and his association with different people and incidents. This book is very informative for young readers, as the book has brought various fragments of events together to know about the resistance and struggle of Kashmiris for self-determination of different periods, and this book creates a connection between past conflict and current situation. Thank you.
I'm all good for present here. Assalamu alaikum. It is highly appreciable that we all are gathered here on the book release event of this recent book, which is Kashmir, Flashback Kashmir story since 1846. As a young Kashmiri, I would like to share my guidance about the book which I have gathered from this. As the American author Michael Crichton has rightly said that if you don't know history, you don't know anything, you are a leaf that doesn't know it is a part of the tree. From history, a nation traces its roots and gathers the insight of its past. Flashback Kashmir story since 1846 by Zahir is an attempt towards compiling the historical developments of Kashmir. Zahir himself, as a journalist, has been fulfilling his duty in writing on the events happening in Kashmir that have utmost historical significance. Journalism, as it is said, is the first draft of history and literature in a hurry, but in a sort of conflict that Kashmir has seen from past many decades. And there is a great power for journalism. More than mere reporting, it can take the form of becoming a chronicler of our present and the past. Through the 90s, Zahir used the opportunities he had through his journalism, even with word links, to document the present and remind of the past. Like his previous books, did they vanish in thin air about Kashmir's disappeared persons, and his second book, Bouquet, about Kashmir's unsung heroes. This book, Flashback Kashmir story since 1846, gives an insight about the important historical accounts that Kashmir has witnessed. Martyrs of Shahid and Silk Factory, agitation for Kashmir's working class, are the events that challenged the autocratic oppression much before the world found its cause to crusade for the rights of laborers. The book accounts the important events of Kashmir's struggle and their events, thereby serve as a guiding manual for the young generation to get deep into the history of Kashmir. At the same time, it lays a foundation for the students of history, political science and anthropology to take the further research. The book that provides historical accounts much before 1987 effectively trashes the dominant Indian narrative, which is also peddled by some in J&K, that the Kashmir struggle arose only because of the rigging in 1987 assembly elections. From challenging the autocratic rulers to political developments that saw Kashmir's unfortunate amalgamation with the Union of India and therefrom a resistance against the New Delhi. The book acts as a guide to understand the genesis of Kashmir conflict. By reading the book, one gets an insight about how the struggle has been going on. Zahir through his write-ups in Greater Kashmir, Itlaat, and even today, through his articles in many dailies, illustrates that we remember the history of our struggle. To a young Kashmiri like me, this book strengthened me in terms of the knowledge of Kashmir history. It equipped me with the facts as how the earlier generations have fought, died and sacrificed. It reminds me of the political challenges of the past and encourages me the struggle ahead. The book's narrative, by being lucid, had the power to attract the reader. The book will go down in history as an important book and an effort to reflect the minds of younger generations. It will definitely be the bedrock for the future for the research. Thank you.
Flashback Kashmir story since 1846, Zahir Sahib's book showcases the history of struggle and suffering of people of Jammu and Kashmir against the tyrannical rule of Mughals since 1846 to 1947 and the subsequent Indian military occupation from 1947 till date. This book is an important addition to the documentation of the historical contextualization of Jammu and Kashmir conflict. The book provides a critical analysis of the historical context in which Kashmir was sold to Gora Hindu Maharaja Gulab Singh, besides delving deep into events preceding the beginning of the Indian occupation. This book gives a holistic view of overall impact of armed conflict on every aspect of life in Kashmir since India's independence. It gives an account of the atrocities and injustices that Kashmir witnessed and suffered. Zahir Sahib documents how Indian state used the situation to its advantage by sending in troops to occupy Kashmir and later claimed that the Maharaja and Sheikh Abdullah had signed the instrument of accession in order to legitimize the military operation. Accession was temporary and conditional on the plebiscite to be held according to UN resolution. The author has documented various events and circumstances which pushed the people of Kashmir to rise against the oppression of the Indian army and fight for the right of self-determination through armed struggle. The author has documented the Gora masquerades of 1991, Khaniyar massacre 1991, Chota killings in 1991, burning of Shiraz Sharif in 1995, Vandana massacre of 1990, and many other events in the book. There are some deeply personal and heartfelt stories in this book. Zahir Sahib mentions his personal experience of being part of the procession on 21st January 1990, which was later fired upon by the state forces, resulting in killing of 52 people. He has explained his helplessness when his brother died of farming and his friend's younger brother was shot dead. Zahir Sahib expressed his anguish and pain when his colleague Asya Jalani was martyred in an IED explosion while going to Gora for monitoring parliamentary elections of 2004. For young women today, Zahir Sahib included this book introduces the zest, zeal and contributions of Asya Jalani. Zahir Sahib rightly says that when a person like Asya dies, a vacuum is created, but I do not agree with Zahir Sahib that Asya's mission is there to JKCCS only, but even people like me who haven't met Asya personally feel very motivated to carry forward her mission. Flashback gives us the idea about how history and techniques of subjugation have repeated by the Indian state of Dr. Afzal rule. It's one full cycle. But if this cycle is not only part of larger historical injustices of the Indian state, but how it has been relentless in its violent pursuits against the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Zahir Sahib's book brings to the light the crude reality about the ignorance of people about the lives of Makbul Baksh and Muhammad Afzal Guru when they were alive. Today, not only Afzal's family, but the entire Kashmiri nation is proud of his stature. Afzal is a source of inspiration for the valiant and defense people of Kashmir. Afzal's execution forced the present generation to look back into the history of Makbul's execution. Zahir Sahib describes how rapes, torture, killings, and forced disappearances have been used as a weapon to quell the demand of the right to self-determination of Kashmiri people. The examples are gruesome and plentiful, and yet, in spite of Operation the will of the people of Jammu and Kashmir remains unshaken and unbroken. The severe brutality of Indian occupational forces has only served to strengthen the will of Kashmiris to fight against Indian occupation. This book inspires you to sustain the freedom of movement, to continue the struggle against the tyranny of India, as the says, let our glorious past be our inspiration. This book attempts to bridge the current struggle with the events of past Kashmir conflict. The author tries to correct the misinterpretation of historical events with his research and interview of people who were witnesses to the events. The book will also help us to learn from our past mistakes. The book will be useful to the reader as it provides chronology of events and promotes the reader to pursue further research. And the struggle continues, says author and then.
When I was asked to review this, two, three things come into my mind that instruct the mind that how to understand the nature of our struggle, and to have answer about some curious questions like which ones the present generation and when, how, and why the things have gone wrong that we landed in the situation in the present situation. Thanks to brainstorm for this effort to preserve our reality evidence in the form of this compilation, Flashback, Kashmir stories since 1846, which to a great extent meet the needs of young generation to know their past and to lead the struggle by taking inspiration from their past. As Sahib also mentioned, as we all know, that ours is the struggle between forgetfulness and remembrance. The compilation of series of these factual events would serve as a reminder for the present generation as well as for the future generations to not to forget the past, particularly when we stand against such a military might. History serves as an important tool or a weapon to resist the occupation. In fact, we are resisting not only the military might, military forces, but against various forces such as cultural and other distractions. History allows us to remain linked with the realities and allows us to know who we are and where we came from. The other thing is that this kind of literature is really available in the market, as the arbitration and the distortion of the history has been the tool of the oppressor. Attempts are being made to manufacture facts, invent scenes and propagate stories which suit oppression, and it is then decided what should be concealed and revealed to people, what they should know and what they should believe in. After going through this book, one can easily get to know how it would act as a guide to know the real past of ours which has been distorted through repeated lies, and how it would function as a form of institutional resistance to this act of the oppressor. One comes to know about the real contribution of the people and only how the occupiers' version of history is being disseminated to the masses. The book provides insight about the ideas of alternate forms of ethical resistance and also provokes in us a need to be creative, as some of our past generations have been while resisting. One other important thing after reading this book is the strong sense of responsibility that comes. This book speaks about the sacrifices of people, the extent that they had gone and what it meant for them. This is an attempt to learn and understand the importance of giving respect to our past generations, to acknowledge the fact that our glorious past serves as a source of inspiration for us and allows us to appreciate context, capacity, and the reality. Although also the author must be an inspiration for the youth, and they should learn how to contribute for the struggle and should sense the importance of engaging themselves to play their role. The book also details the various forms of tactics used by the oppressor in subjugating the voices for the freedom. That's in the form of torture, rape, disappearances, extrajudicial killings, and the massacres. The important thing about this book is it states out how these methods got evolved and under what ground they are executed. It's the different forms of these violence, degrading treatment are not basically aggressions from the state agents, but it's the policy of Indian state to choose the voices for freedom. That's why one concludes after reading the book. Another interesting feature of this book is whether one considers the history of Kashmir or the human rights story of Kashmir, it comes through that Indian state has always been the same, and their actions against us have always been intended and institutional. Also, one comes to know about the many apparent parallels from the stories in this book and recent times in Kashmir. For example, on the issue of Kashmiris when they got clear and independent investigations for crime. There's a story in the book about the Ahrar team who had west the Kashmir in 1931 to have independent for a fact-finding mission. So severe restrictions were placed upon them and their work was monitored and controlled and restricted. This is very similar to the present times and how the state seeks to control investigations. For example, almost all the year special reporters are not allowed, and when some are allowed they are monitored and restricted. It's important for us not to blind to this. For example, the UN special reporter for extrajudicial killings visited Kashmir in early 2012 and was supposed to be here for 1 day in Abdul's hotel, and there were very limited waitings. Particularly, this book emphasizes that the need to be mindful and constantly expose the state when it seeks to do this. This book provides across the coherence and the continuity to our past, which provides the actual genesis of our struggle against the oppression. The book reveals the real face of the Indian state. One understands the politics of Indian state, that is the state, then the different instruments like killing people, dishonoring, disrespect, maligning, promote, glorify, silencing, same, right? Which depicts that Indian state is at war. Furthermore, it reveals how we are dealing with and who we are resisting. It also focuses on how strategic and creative our resistance should be. This book is also important because a critical voice has chosen to also be critical of the movement itself. For example, the book provides a critique of the mob position regarding elections, but it's mentioned also in the foreword of the book. Zainsa provides a critique of how the mob have been no difference if the elections had not been triggered and mob had come to power. Today, there is once again talk by certain commanders, particularly the so-called reasonable youth leaders, on the value of elections. History teaches us that we should not repeat our mistakes and we must not put the hopes on strategies that we have failed in the past. And at last, to conclude, the clarification from the Zahir that this book raises some methodological questions. When I was reading it, that the source in this book are anecdotal from oral testimonies and of course from other books. There is no doubt that book is invaluable, particularly the oral history is highlighted and manipulated by others. But as a young person who is engaged in documentation of human rights, the question is, what's the test to know whether the source is reliable and how our source is identified? On one hand, I want to create credible work. On the other hand, I don't want to use the standards created by the oppressor that serve as a trap for me to constantly have to prove the credibility of a Kashmiri source, for example. I would be very interested in hearing this one for this question, particularly from thank you.
One of the ideas which every review has actually touched is the concept of memory and forgetfulness. This, I think, all the review these persons have said already.